Hey there, folks. Welcome into the News 12 Now desk. Thanks for joining us here. It is about 9:30 on our Friday morning. We're going to take you live to the Richmond County Sheriff's Office now, where Sheriff Gino Brantley is announcing the guidelines for a curfew that's going to be going in place for teens. Let's listen in.
County Sheriff's Office will begin to proactively enforce our curfew laws. These laws are 11 p.m. on the weekdays and 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. on the weekends. And again, this isn't about punishment. This is about protection. Protection from bad choices, bad influences, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time, which often has severe consequences that come along with some of those bad choices. Why now? In the past month, we've had several incidents involving teenagers, juveniles caught with illegal firearms. We had a 17-year-old juvenile who accidentally shot his finger off while trying to hide a firearm during a traffic stop. And we've had groups of juveniles out at 2 or 3 in the morning that we've apprehended trying to break in cars to steal firearms. These aren't harmless mistakes. These are life-changing decisions. And they're happening when teens are unsupervised and out past curfew. So what's changing? We've worked with our partners in the court system, including Judge Tiana Bias, to streamline the intake process, to issue warnings, give advisories, to help educate and encourage parents to be more responsible and make them aware of the consequences and the bad choices that often comes with their kids being out past curfew. So parents and their kids will both be held accountable. And when this happens, parents will be contacted when necessary and held responsible for their kids' actions if they continue to violate the curfew. Our message to the parents is, we need your help. We don't want to knock on your door at 2 a.m. because we have your kid in the backseat of one of our patrol cars because of a choice that they've made because they're out past curfew. There's nothing good happening for teenagers after 12 midnight. And if they're home, they're safe, and they're not at risk. Our goal is not to fill the criminal justice system with young kids that's been out with curfew violations. Our goal is to keep them out of the system for more serious crimes that often come with them being out past curfew. This is a chance to correct bad behavior before it becomes a criminal record. We're not here to criminalize, we're here to correct their actions. We want voluntary compliance, but we're prepared to enforce it if necessary. If we work together, we can make a difference. We all have a role to play in protecting our youth, and curfew enforcement is just a small piece of that. We have pamphlets for each and every one of you here, fully explaining our curfew information. And at this time, I'd like to introduce someone who's been very instrumental in making this initiative possible, Judge Tiana Bias.
Good morning. Thank you, Sheriff Brantley. So just to touch on some of the points that Sheriff Brantley has already outlined, our goal in the juvenile judicial system is to educate the public. As a juvenile judge, my goal, if I am the first judge that your child sees, is for me to be the last judge that your child will see, because we hope to protect their record so that they are not charged criminally once they are adults who could end up in state, superior, or civil and magistrate court. One thing that we wanted you all to be aware of is that, as the sheriff already said, this is not a new law that is on the books. This is something that was on the books when I was a teenager, and we've realized that there is a lack of information that has been presented to the public. And so our goal is not to play a game of hide the ball. We are not trying to set parents and their children up. In fact, we hope that this press conference and all of the social media information that we've released will be used as an effort to be proactive to get this information out so that you all will be aware of what the protocol is in the event that your child should encounter law enforcement. Let me be clear, I cannot speak for Sheriff Brantley, but I'm very confident in saying that this is not a situation where law enforcement officers are waiting around the corner for the clock to strike midnight so that they can catch your children out and about in violation of the curfew. Our goal is to always get our children home safely, especially during the summertime where we see a lot of crimes involving juveniles. Either they are the victims of crimes or they are the perpetrators of crimes. And we would like them to be home safe with their parents because we understand that there are adults who tend to prey on the innocence of youth, and they try to trick them into believing that somehow, some way, they do not have the same amount of consequences if they were to engage in illicit activity with an adult. In addition to what the sheriff has already said, I would like to be clear in letting you all know that we do actively support this initiative. We do want to keep our children safe, as I have already said, and we want to make sure that you all are voluntarily complicit with this protocol. You all will each receive a copy of the handout. We have put it out on social media. There have been multiple news outlets that I see present today, as well as on social media. Keep in mind that a judge never prejudges the facts of the case. So what that means is that if you do end up before myself or one of my colleagues in juvenile court, we will evaluate each case individually based on the facts and the evidence that is presented. If your child is charged in violation of the curfew violation, by law, they will be appointed a child attorney to represent them when they come to court. So if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you, and you will be given a fair opportunity to advocate for your child and yourself as to why you should not be held accountable, or if you should be held accountable, what sort of leniency you would expect from the court. So keep in mind, we do not prejudge a case. We do uphold the law. And our goal is to educate each and every one of you so that we can work in partnership to keep the children in Richmond County safe. And with that being said, I am open to any questions. I'm sure Sheriff Brantley is happy to answer any questions as well.
So what about for young people that they work, and we got football season coming up, some of these kids maybe 12:30 driving home, are they gonna be getting pulled over?
That's an excellent question. One thing that a lot of people have not realized with the protocol is that under the laws in the state of Georgia, you are allowed to be out after midnight if you are with an adult over the age of 18. So what that means is that do not get confused and believe that because you have given your child permission that somehow they are now allowed to violate the laws of the state of Georgia. But if you have a child who is working, who has a legitimate reason to be out and about, then they need to be in the presence of an adult. If you have any questions and you need any clarity as a parent, then we do have child attorneys across the state. We have many of them in Richmond County. There are plenty of attorneys who can advise you. As a judge, I am not allowed to give legal advice, but I will say that the statute is very clear that even if your child has a legitimate purpose, they do need to be in the presence of an adult, whether it is you, a trusted guardian, a football coach, an employer, so that we can make sure that they are in compliance with the state laws.
Sounds like parents got to step it up.
Absolutely. And as a parent myself, I will tell you that I completely understand. I empathize with parents wanting their children to be engaged in extracurricular activities. I have 2 boys myself that are in extracurricular activities. And fortunately for us, we have to realize that this is something that the sheriff has taken upon himself to avoid actually bringing children and their parents in court before a judge such as myself, which is why we are pushing this information out as quickly, as accurately as we can, so that we can ensure that everyone is aware. Because as you may know, if you have not heard it already, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So simply because you are not aware that this law is on the books, it does not mean that you cannot be held accountable. It does not mean that you will not be held accountable, which is why as an officer of the court, I feel as though it is my duty to make sure that you are educated, aware, and informed, because I will be honest with you, I do not want to see your children in the courtroom with myself. I think that Sheriff Brantley believes that his officers could be better used by being proactive, preventing crimes involving adults. And the best way for him to be able to do that is if parents partner with us and ensure that their children are safe at home at their correct and appropriate times.
What kind
kind of charges are could parents be looking at when they're on their third, fourth, fifth offense with something like this?
When you are a parent of a juvenile who's in violation of a crime that you are aware of, you can be charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. If you refuse to pick up your child from the sheriff's office, you could also be charged with abandonment because you are the legal guardian who is responsible for that juvenile. Just to clarify, this is not something that we are citing children with as a criminal offense on the first offense. This does fall under the CHIN statute, which is the Children in Need of Services. Our director, Dr. Audrey Amistad, is present as well. So our goal is always to make sure that we avoid children being charged criminally if we can. However, if it is something that continues to be an offense that your child commits with your knowledge, then the parent could be charged in civil and magistrate court. And they do have penalties up to 60 days in confinement, 6 months on probation, and sometimes they have fines up to $1,000. And so you could absolutely be charged by contributing to your child's illicit behavior if you do not do what you need to do to be proactive and prevent it.
Does that kind of coexist with your court? Because I mean, if it's parents, they're not going to go to juvenile court, correct? They're going to go to.
Absolutely. One thing that you have to remember, though, is that in the event that your child is fined in juvenile court, if your child is unemployed, then a lot of times that fine or any other expenses would be incurred by the parent. And so juvenile court is meant to be a partnership with the families. We want to provide services to these children so that hopefully they don't have to continue to need our services in the future. Our goal is always to rehabilitate families, to put them in the best position to parent independently as well as effectively without the assistance of the court. We have a plethora of services that we are happy to provide. However, like I already said, if your child gets fined in juvenile court, then a lot of times that expense does get incurred on the parent. In addition to that, you will see that we have new tracking devices that are being put on children who are found to be repeat offenders of this curfew violation. That is not an effort to embarrass children. In fact, we have met with multiple agencies. We have found the most discreet monitors that we can find because we do not want children going to school being embarrassed by the fact that they had to come to juvenile court. And so that has been a partnership with Superior Court as well, so that we can make sure we are tracking our kids accurately and safely. And even though you only see the sanctions, we do also have an incentive matrix, meaning that if your child is in compliance, we do not want to continue to monitor them indefinitely. We like to monitor them for a short period of time to establish complicit behavior and release them back to the care of their parents. In fact, you will notice when you read the pamphlets that the sheriff's office has disseminated, our goal is not to detain these children at all. We hope to make brief contact with the family, make them aware of the issue, and release them back to their parents so that they can discuss what needs to be taken as a proactive measure before they come in front of a juvenile court judge.
My last question is, say a child didn't have to have one with monitors on them or a tracker on them. Is there any charge to the parents for them to have that?
Yes. And so initially to install the monitor, there is no charge. However, you could be fined. But if you were to be in violation of that monitor, let's say that we put you under an exclusionary zone, meaning that you are not allowed to be downtown, which is somewhat of a business district as I refer to it, because most of those businesses are either bars or businesses that serve alcohol, meaning that someone under the age of 21 has no legitimate reason to be in that area after midnight, especially if it's not a residential area. And so if you continue to violate the terms of your tracking and you are in zones that you are excluded from, you could be fined. If you were to damage one of the devices, if you were to cut it off, you could be fined up to $350 in order for us to be able to replace that device so that we can make sure that the court is being fair. This is not an incentive or an initiative for the sheriff's office or the juvenile court to get rich off of children who are in violation of curfews. We are not making money off of this initiative. We are simply trying to keep our children safe.
What ages are we talking about in this?
A juvenile would be anyone under the age of 18. So if you are 17 and below, then you would need to be home after 11 p.m. on weekdays, which includes Sundays, Fridays, and Saturdays. You would need to be home after midnight. After 5 a.m., you are free to leave your home because obviously high schools start very early in the morning. I'm well aware of that from when I went to Hustler.
How would this enforcement deal with juveniles that are homeless or found to be in homeless families?
And I will tell you that if we are to encounter a juvenile who is homeless, then our ultimate goal is not to obviously penalize them for being out and about, because at that point you would not necessarily be considered someone who is loitering, right? But that is always a fact-specific situation. So once that case comes before the court, we would first address the needs of that juvenile to see whether or not we need to work with them to find them safe housing, to see whether or not they have a guardian who could provide shelter for them in a safe manner, or if that is someone who needs to be referred to one of our other juvenile courts, such as Dependency or Family Preservation Court, so that we can make sure we find housing and shelter for them.
How can parents partner with you all moving forward with this?
Moving forward, you can always reach out to us if we have questions. I will tell you that the sheriff has a very active Facebook page. We do have juvenile court Facebook pages. You can also reach out to Thrive and contact Dr. Audrey Amistad or her staff member, Mr. Cleve Pascal. They are always giving information out to other juveniles and their parents. So even if your child is not in violation of curfew, if you are concerned about the behaviors of your child, if you are having trouble with them being habitually disobedient, if you are not aware of the laws in juvenile court, you can reach out to any of our staff members and they will be happy to connect you with our director. And we will get you all her contact information as well. She's to my left, your right.
Can you explain any neighborhoods or zones that's being prioritized for the curfew enforcement?
So I will defer to Sheriff Brentley on this as well. This is a citywide initiative. And keep in mind, when we spoke to the sheriff's office about this issue, our goal was not to target low income areas, high crime areas. This is a citywide issue. So regardless of whether you are in a high crime, low income area, or if you are in a low crime, high income area, you will be treated the same when you come to court, when you are encountered by law enforcement, because the ultimate goal is to make sure that everyone is in compliance with this law, regardless of where you live across the CSRA.
We are collecting data and releasing it to the public.
Our office keeps data that can be released, and we will make sure that the sheriff has that information as well.
They can be stopped for driving down the road or in a parking lot, or how would all that work? As far as
Well, when it comes to, driving and being stopped, I mean, they would have to be in violation of some law, traffic law, to be pulled over. I mean, we're not just randomly looking through, cars to see it and determine whether someone is of age or, old enough to be out past curfew. But if they are out, then the laws are very clear. And the only way we would come in contact with them if they were driving and they got pulled over for a traffic violation. So, or unless we, are conducting roadblocks that people don't, really tend to listen when we, put that information out that we're having roadblocks, and they kind of take offense to it. So that would be another way that we may encounter them outside of them just violating a traffic law.
What protocols are in place if a parent can't or is unable to come at that moment? So it's after 12, they're asleep, or they're at work, or without work hour. So let's just say my child is out. And then you guys have them, and I think you said that the parent can be charged with
Abandonment or contributing to delinquency of a minor.
if I don't show up, but I'm an hour away. What protocols are in place if that happens?
And so what we've done, we've partnered with the Downtown Development Association, and they've given us the access to a building as a holding area. So we could hold them there until the parent can get there, or if they're within our city limits, at times we may be able to transport them to the parent. But still, regardless of whether you're at work or at home, if they're a juvenile, as a parent, you're still responsible for the actions of your child.
Where is that holding center downtown?
11th and Green.
11th and Green.
971 Broad Street is the juvenile courthouse, but that's not the holding facility. And so the holding facility that the sheriff is referring to was an effort that the sheriff's office took to make sure that we are trying to avoid transporting these juveniles to the RYDC, because we realize that obviously anytime a juvenile encounters a holding facility that resembles a jail or a prison, even if it is designed for minors, that can be a traumatic experience. And so that was something that we took into consideration when we were writing this protocol, is that we do want to minimize these encounters with law enforcement, minimize these traumatic experiences with the court system as much as possible.
That's not for sure. Other enforcement initiatives usually have some sort of physical presence, speeding initiatives, you see the flashing lights. And in enforcement downtown, 2 officers a block. I think you touched on this earlier, but is there going to be any kind of similar tell for curfew enforcement?
No, sir. I mean, we're going to go about business as normal. But if we happen to encounter these juveniles, then we'll deal with them accordingly. But like I said, so we're not actively going out trying to find it or find juveniles in, it's not obeying the law. But if we do come in contact with them, we'll deal with them accordingly. But we're not doing anything special to just target juveniles. I think we have enough going on in our county that we really don't need, to have to take the deputies away from doing the things that they really need to be concentrating on to make sure our county is safe. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're putting this out, and we're asking the parents to get a hold of, their juveniles or their kids, their kids, if they've been allowing them to, roam the streets and be out past the curfew. So this is just an effort to, prevent them from ending up in our system.
Have you guys seen a decline since you guys really started pushing this initiative? I think it was that the telfair shooting that happened about a month and a half ago, when we started seeing more social media, more press coverage on the curfew. Have you guys seen a downtick from this?
Well, just from an aspect of me getting early morning text messages and calls and things of that nature, I feel like it's working. I feel like the juveniles are at least being a little smarter about being out and being seen, as if anyone else who was out trying to do something that they shouldn't be doing. So hopefully the message gets out. Like I said, we've partnered with the juvenile judges. Thrive is a great program. The CHINS program is exceptional. And we're just trying to save as many of our kids as we can. We have enough people in jail, trust me.
Are folks who are 18 or college age or young looking, or, are they advised to just keep their IDs on them so there's no mistakes or mishaps or anything?
Well, I would hope that if they're of age, they would typically have an ID. I know sometimes they don't, but hopefully they will have their identification on them. Sometimes we run into adults that don't have their IDs on them for whatever reason. So hopefully if they're of age to have a identification card and they're out and about, then hopefully they will have their ID on. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, folks, there you have it. Sheriff Gino Brantley and Judge Tiana Bias. They're giving a news conference talking about the curfew that will be enacted. They said it's nothing new. This is not a new law they're putting into place. They're just going to be enforcing it a little bit more, trying to keep kids safe out there. We do have a couple things I want to pull up to show you. First, we have what this looks like. So you see, if they come into contact with any kids, and they wanted to make this point, the sheriff did, they're not out looking for people who may be under the age of 18. They're not going to be looking for drivers who are under the age of 18 out past curfew. But if they do come into contact with them, they may ask. And you can see the hours right there in that left box, that number 1. If they are out past curfew, they'll be taken to either their parents, or their parents will have to come pick them up, or they'll be taken to a holding location on the weekends. I think they said that was at 11th and Green or 11th and Telfair. We'll have to go back and double check on that. But there will be a place for parents to come pick them up on the weekends. And then this is all in an effort, like I said, to just keep kids out of the court system. Judge Bias said if she is the first court or the first judge that those kids are going in front of, she wants to be the last judge that those kids are going in front of. We do have another little graphic here to show you. This breaks down the first 4 offenses. Hopefully there won't be more than 4, but this is what 4 looks like. And we've covered this on our morning show too and on our newscast. So if you want to check out our website, we have this all up on there. So for a first offense, someone may receive a verbal warning, a $75 fine, and or a written project. The second offense could be placed on a monitoring device, and they said that would be a temporary monitoring device. Judge Baez said they don't want to be watching these kids 24/7 all the time, right? They want to just do this for a short period of time. Once they start showing what she said is complicit behavior, then they'll stop the monitoring there. They pay a supervision fee of $200 for that second offense, house arrest, and then maybe some programming as well. Upon their third offense, they can get some extension on their monitoring, a $500 fine, house arrest, and then this is where you start to see possible arrests being made, 24 hours in confinement there, and that continues on into the fourth offense where they could be in jail for up to 72 hours. Also important to note, parents can be cited when they have the third and fourth offense for those kids. So this is the sheriff's office partly turning it around on the parents and saying you need to take care of your kids at home. So we will have more on this coming up in a little bit when we get our Cameron Jacobs finishing up there. He'll join us, but wanted to show these to you real quick. We're going to take a 3-minute break and we'll be right back. Hey there, folks. Welcome back. We are continuing our coverage this morning of the Sheriff's Office in Richmond County enforcing a curfew for teens. Now, that curfew says teens cannot be out under the age of 18, cannot be out past 11 o'clock during the week and then past midnight on the weekends. Now, there are some exceptions if they've got a job. If they are with an adult, that is okay too. So there are a couple exceptions to this rule, but that is going to be the broad spanning rule right now, is that they can't be out past, again, 11 on the weekdays and then midnight on the weekends, and then they can go out again at 5 o'clock in the morning. So just a few hours there throughout the night that teens aren't allowed to be out. The sheriff did want to make a point during this that they're not going to be looking for teens who are out, but if they come across a teenager or a group of teenagers, then they will enforce that curfew. Somebody had asked, what if they're just driving home from something? And the sheriff said they would have to commit some sort of traffic violation in order to get pulled over. You're not going to get pulled over for being young, basically, is what he was trying to say there. I thought Judge Tiana Bias made an interesting point there, or a good statement. She said, if she is the first judge that your kids go in front of, she wants to be the last judge that your kids go in front of. So this is not a gotcha moment for any kids or any families. This is trying to get to them early before they get into the big court system and get in some real serious trouble at the state and federal level. So the sheriff did say, or excuse me, Judge Bias did say, gang members have no problems going after these kids while they're young. So now the sheriff's office and the court system and parents need to get to these kids while they're young too, to get them on the right path. So we do have a crew out there right now. They're getting set up, and once they get set up, we will check in with them in a couple minutes. But right now, let's go ahead and take a look at what this curfew exactly is and what the rules of it are going to be. So let's take a look at this. Again, they can be out from any time before 11 and then after 5 a.m. on the weekdays, and then before midnight and after 5 a.m. on the weekends. Now, anyone that is in violation of this, any of those teenagers, will get a verbal warning first. This may be a $75 fine or a written project. That's just for a first offense. For the second offense, they could be placed on a monitoring device, pay a supervision fee of up to $200, then possibly go on house arrest. And the monitoring device was something else that Judge Bias hit on, saying they don't want to be monitoring these kids all the time forever, right? So they just want to keep an eye on them for a little bit. Once they show some what she called complicit behavior, they say that's when they'll stop the monitoring and then let them go back to the parents and just go about their lives. For a third offense, this is where the parents actually get involved. So for the kids, they can get extension on their monitoring, pay a $500 fine, go on house arrest, and then even get 24 hours in jail. And that is where the parents can be given a citation as well. So that's an important thing to note. Parents, they are putting the responsibility on you too. Then for a fourth offense, the kids could be going to jail for up to 3 days. So that is the breakdown of each offense and what kids and parents could be facing if they're found in violation of this law. So it looks like we have Cameron ready to go live outside the sheriff's office for us this morning. So Cameron, if you can hear me, can you give me a thumbs up real quick? All right, we don't have him quite yet, but working on getting him set up right now. All right, looks like he now is ready for us. All right, so Cameron, you were sitting in on that news conference there. We heard from the sheriff. We heard from Judge Bias there. So give us the breakdown of what they were talking about.
So there's a couple different things to unpack here, Nick. The first one is just reminding everybody that there is a curfew in effect, and it's been a curfew. It's been in effect since even the Judge Bias herself said she was in high school. The other thing is that they're really asking parents to just step up and really pay attention to what their kids are doing. And with this new initiative, they're saying that it's you as a parent, you yourself will end up being charged if your kids are repeat offenders. And now there is some different things that are coming up with this. I heard you mention earlier that with the first offense, it will be a verbal warning. The second offense is a juvenile may be placed on a monitoring device, pay a supervision fee of $200, house arrest and or additional CHINS programming. The third offense is where parents do get involved. Upon the third offense, juvenile may receive an extension on monitoring, pay a fine of up to $500, house arrest, CHINS programming, and or 24 hours confinement. And this is one of the things that the judge talked about, was that even though that it is the child's offense, it's usually going to end up being the parents that do pay for it. And then we're going to lead into the fourth offense or subsequent offense. Juvenile may be placed in confinement for up to 72 hours. This is in addition to any of the previously outlined sections here, as well as more potential time with that CHINS monitoring device there as well. So really today's big message so far was really pushing in the fact that parents need to step up. Parents need to really be paying attention to their kids, and for this is really truly just the safety of keeping these kids out of gangs, keeping these kids off the streets and getting in with the wrong crowds, and really just pushing safety and bringing families together even. And as we heard earlier today, the judge Bias was saying that she wants to be the first, not only the first, but she also wants to be the last judge juveniles see, and to really prevent them from crimes featuring in the future.
Yeah, Cameron, I thought that was a really interesting point when she said that and mentioned that she wants to be the judge, the last judge they want to see. There were a couple interesting points in there. One of them was there are some exceptions to this rule. I heard somebody ask about football games are coming up here in a couple weeks, and so students may be out a little bit later than 11 o'clock. What were some of the exceptions that they were talking about?
So this kind of goes hand in hand with the exception. It's not so much an exception, but like if a child was coming home from a football game and say it was 12:05, 12:10, they would have to initiate probably a traffic violation or be doing something wrong to begin with in order for this to happen. So Sheriff Brantley made it clear that they are not going out and just searching for people walking around, driving around, looking in windows, seeing if somebody who is driving is under the age of 18. But in this case, if there was an incident like that, that's when the verbal warning would come into play, and or potentially parents would be getting notified or be getting more involved.
Yeah, and Sheriff Brantley did say they're not just going to pull people over for looking young. They have to have committed some sort of offense before then. So another thing, too, like they said, this is not anything new. They mentioned possibly holding the kids if they get caught out on the weekends. What's the deal with that?
Yes, so we also learned today that there is actually a new, not new, but a holding facility on Broad Street. Right off the top of my head, I do not know the address of that, but one of the things that they made clear was they didn't want this to be intimidating. They understand that these are still children, and it's a very small offense if it as an offense period, but they really want to make sure that the kids are there. One of the biggest points that was made was kind of like a off question to this was, what if I'm a parent and I'm at work and I cannot come to my child and I cannot pick them up right away? That's where Sheriff Brantley came back in, and he's like, this is where we're telling you as parents that they are under your responsibility, and you are expected to be there almost immediately if your child is to be picked up and being held at that point. So really the child abandonment and really being able to step up as a parent was really the messaging today.
Yeah, they hit on that a few times, talking about parents could get cited, and then like you mentioned there, if parents aren't able to pick them up, they could be charged with abandonment, and they could also be charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So some pretty serious things for the parents as well, just encouraging them to make sure their kids are doing the right thing and not staying out past curfew. Cameron, any other big points that they hit on that you wanted to cover here?
Well, one of my last questions to Sheriff Brantley was if he's seen if there was a down play in some of the curfew violations, and he kind of made a joke about it. He said that his text messages are not as full when he wakes up in the morning about curfew violations. However, he said that this is still a issue that's happening here in Richmond County. But one of the biggest points is that he's really trying to get us, the media and social media, to really get those notifications out, because they're really worried about the people just not knowing of this curfew law that has been in effect for many years. And with this, he did say that there is so far seemingly a downstride in the number of violations that they're issuing since the really big violation that we remember here just not too long ago that happened down in Telfair, that shooting that happened off of Telfair Street where multiple teens were involved with this, and that seemed to really what sparked all of this coming up.
Yeah, so already seems to be working a little bit. That is the good news there, because the more kids stay out of the juvenile system, the better for all of us. So Cameron Jacobs live there at the Sheriff's Office. We're going to have more on this coming up. News 12 at midday. Cameron, thanks for the live update here for us this morning.